Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us for today's Lunch and Learn. I'm excited about our time today because for the first time ever in the history, we have a guest, Angie Gray, and I'm super excited to have her. She is just a phenomenal woman. We have had a connection call and there was so much good energy there. I was like, this is a person that I wish that we lived closer because we would definitely be friends hanging out together quite frequently. So let me just read for you super quick a little bit about Angie. Angie, if you want to introduce yourself and talk about what you're doing and share with the people here how they can get a hold of you and just what you're up to.
Well, you know what? Go ahead and read that short little thing. That'll help because now you're gonna put me on the spot. Otherwise I'll just say like, "Hi, I'm Angie. I'm a mom, and I've got 7 kids, and I do some stuff." Go ahead and read it, and then I'll say whatever.
Awesome. Well, Angie is the founder of High Performance Nursing and advocate for nurse leadership excellence. She's not only the founder, but she's also the creator of praised programs such as Communication Mastery and the Nurse Leadership Mastery Program. Angie's dedicated her career to empowering nurse leaders and those on the path to leadership. Her expertise in communication, relationship building, and self-care equips nursing professionals to navigate the intense emotional and physical demands of their role. The result? Enhanced well-being, increased joy, and superior outcomes for both healthcare organizations and patients.
Yay, that's me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that thank you. I forget which one I sent you, but yes, that's me. So I get to coach and train nurse leaders primarily right now in senior living. I have a nursing background and left nursing because it was super toxic, and that was 25 years ago. Stayed home, homeschooled our kids, continued my education, and when I came back, it was because I had a couple opportunities from some work that I did after coming back to work as a wellness coach. I partnered with a company that had me go on Dr. Oz for 2 segments, and I got to co-host with him. And we did a couple segments called "The Future of Nursing." And it was really through that opportunity, listening to these nursing students share video submissions of why they thought they were the future of nursing. And it was very idealistic and very romanticized and honorable, but they were very excited to be back to get into nursing. And then simultaneously, unbeknownst to me, I had already started talking to more seasoned nurses that did not have that same view of their nursing experience. They were very disengaged. There was no trust. So that's at that time I was like, oh, I really felt called or led to come back to my roots of nursing and fill that gap with the skill sets of relationship skills and management that come from being able to um, manage or to be able to be more self-aware and emotionally intelligent. So I put together my program, and that's how we connected, Jill, through some different connections in those spaces.
Yeah, so great. I love the work that you're doing. It's so important to be just supporting nurses. They are on the front line. They work so hard. We obviously share that same passion of just supporting people who are doing really challenging work, but that is so rewarding and that they're drawn to it from this huge heart of care. So, Angie, let me ask you, in your time of life, what was the biggest obstacle that you faced as a leader, and how did you overcome it?
That's a really, really good question, and I've given that some thought. So, in my 56 years, I have been in leadership as a parent we have 7 children. Um, I've been in leadership as a wellness coach and led a large team of people, and now in leadership with my own company and leading other leaders. So, experience in different spaces. And I know this is probably going to be sort of a the answer to my question or your question is the biggest obstacle in my experience of leadership is me. I have always been the biggest obstacle forever and ever. And specifically, I think the one of the biggest lessons is for me in is self-awareness. And so when I look back at all the things that I've done well, they were all done from a space of self-awareness.
Mm.
And um, every choice that I made, or self-awareness also including the an understanding of my own worth and value, and I
Mhm.
include that in self-awareness, and all the decisions that I've made that didn't have great outcomes that caused maybe myself and others pain came from a not self-aware space. Um, so that's sort of the big answer.
Yeah.
Is self-awareness for sure. My own self, I was the biggest problem. I know your follow-up question is now, so how did I overcome that, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So the overcoming part is it's not an overcoming. I think it's not that I overcame it. It was a beginning of a journey of something that's been the most difficult thing I've ever had to do and continues to be
Mm.
the most difficult, challenging thing is to understand myself, my worth, my value. And so it's that I can give you a couple of things. So I chose two things to kind of talk about. And one of them is I gained my own self-awareness through my faith. I'm not a religious person, nothing wrong with religion, but I'm a person that's very spiritual. So I have a strong faith. I think whatever you want to say, if it's natural intelligence, the universe, or God, I will say God for me. So my faith is a huge thing for me. And the biggest growth I've had, or the most significant, meaningful growth, is when I give that have chosen, and I've gone on, back and forth, but now in my life at 56, it's been a good now solid amount of time where in the mornings I dedicate, you know, 5, 10, 20 minutes to meditation and then a time to intentionally set my day and pray. So that for me is the foundation of beginning to understand who I am and my value. And really, that's my whole journey on the planet, Jill, is to, and no matter what my platform is, no matter what I'm teaching on self awareness, trust, boundaries, whatever it might be, and and emotional intelligence. That's my message. My message is truly to pay forward what I believe is true about you.
Yeah.
Um, that's the first thing, and that's sort of that isn't sort of that's the inner thing, right? That's the inner thing that sets the tone and success for everything else. The other thing that I think and that I teach that was a huge aha for me. So I'm just gonna spill it right now, but I'm pretty open. I'm a pretty open book. So my husband and I actually, excuse me, we're divorced from each other and remarried. We've been married 33 years. We don't count the year off. Excuse me. But so we've had quite the journey in our life. And so we had our first child when I was a senior in high school, and then got married, and then took a break, or had 3 kids, took a break, and got divorced, got back together, and had 3 more kids. So we've had quite the journey. But one of the things that we kept cycling back in this space in our relationship, a lot of people will relate to this, and the reason I'm sharing this is because I'm a big believer and teacher of everything. Everything is relationships. So including how my relationships are at home will be directly related to the success that I have in my work that I do, and vice versa. If my work relationships suck, and there's toxicity there, it's going to cross over into my family life.
Yeah.
So Todd and I, his name is Todd, we would cycle through this same sort of thing. And at the end of the day, it was always about communication. It would always be like, we do these Sunday sit downs, and I have a whole thing I do on Sunday sit downs, but we would sit down on Sunday, like have the work week, sit down on Sunday, and guess who would do the most talking? That would be me. And so I'd be like, blah, 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 blah. This is all the stuff that, I felt frustrated about, or these are all the things that are coming, that are happening for me. And then I get done and I'd be like, what do you think? And he would like literally have nothing to say. Like he would be like,
Mm.
and he would just stare. And I mean, this went on for years. Okay. And inside, I'm thinking, lots of things. I'm thinking, I mean, to be honest, I'm feeling frustrated, like we've been married a long time. We've been divorced and back together, like I'm thinking a lot of things. Isn't it not been enough time for you to get, you don't know how to come back and say anything. So inside I'm thinking a lot of things that weren't my best self. And it was really, really the most challenging because I didn't like to feel that way, but it really left me feeling like I'm better than him.
Mm.
I'm better than you because you just look at me. So you're like this simple simpleton that doesn't know how to, and then I'd feel like crap about me, right? Like that's not who I am. So it's a vicious cycle. So again, I'm sharing this with you because it learning this, the lesson that I learned had everything to do with what I teach now. So I learned that through communication skills, and actually it was a personality assessment thing, that the one that I do now, I've actually just created my own self. So there's no like science behind it, except for I borrowed from several different personality science assessments. But what I learned is that each of us have our own communication styles, meaning we have values through which we best communicate and how we build trust. So what was the biggest aha about that is that my husband, who I'm married to, has a different, there's four different styles.
Mhm.
And if you can match the first two, you're going to be doing really well. If one of those first two is happens to be the last one of the person you're in relationship with, you can bet you're probably going to do this
Mm.
a lot more challenging. So it didn't mean that I was actually better than Todd. It just meant we communicated very differently. And when I learned that, it was truly like I was like, "What? Oh
Yeah,
my gosh, this makes so much sense to me." And it was awesome because that was the awareness part. Oh, the awareness that, I actually have different set, we all have the values within us, so we have the capacity to strengthen those, but those weren't the lens that I was working through, right? And he had a completely different colored lens on. And
sure.
it was so cool. It was so cool because then I could tell myself a different story. So the story that I was telling myself was inaccurate,
Yeah,
it wasn't right. It wasn't fair to him, it wasn't fair to me, it wasn't fair to us. And I was not only doing that with my husband, but I was doing that with my team. So as far as leadership in my family, even in my kids, but I was doing it with my team also. Um, I'll just share a quick example about that. So I was leading my team. We had this venue that I was doing a big event, and my team met and we were going over some things. But before we met at this venue, I let everybody know that I was going to be late. So this is probably 10 years ago now. I let everybody know I was going to be late. And so, I have little kids at home at the time, and I'm like, okay, blah, blah, blah. I get there, we start the meeting, and one of my team members on my team, she lasted for about 3 minutes after I got my stuff out and put it on the table and we started to discuss. She lasted for about 3 minutes and then she picked up her briefcase and she walked out the door. First thought in my head was, now this is before I know what I know now, right? Um, she walked out of the room and I remember going, what is wrong with her? Why is she so mad? I can't believe that. Well, then somebody said, well, she was pretty upset that you were late. First thing, the story I'm telling myself inside, I wasn't saying it out loud, but inside, I was making all kinds of judgments that how
Mm.
inconsiderate of her, how not compassionate. Doesn't she know that I'm doing my best? Doesn't she know that I have little kids at home? And on and on. So I use that as an example just because what I know now is that her name is Mindy and she's a beautiful, amazing human being. And she showed me a lot of grace until she just was done. So she had to put up boundaries. So what I learned about Mindy is that one of Mindy's communication styles is just different than mine. And meaning to Mindy, it was very important that I was on time. If I'm not on time, that means I am devaluing her to her. I'm
Mhm.
devaluing her. I'm devaluing her time. So anyway, it was a big eye opener, and I learned to understand what the different communication styles are of people and how to build trust so that I can quickly shift. And the best part of that is the self-awareness about
Yeah.
what story am I telling myself? Is that true? Um, yeah, so it's just it was a great aha for me, to be able to look at people differently.
Yeah, that's really good. We've been talking about that these last few weeks. We've talked about emotional intelligence, self-awareness. Anybody who hangs out with me any length of time knows that I'm super big on communication and the fact that we communicate as an outpouring of our personality. And so to know that as a leader, to understand, like that was when I first learned about personality and all the different aspects like DISC and Enneagram and Myers-Briggs and Strength Finders. When I first started learning about that, I was like, oh my gosh, it was most impacting to me and my immediate relationships, because
Yep.
all of a sudden I started going, oh, this is how people perceive me.
Mhm.
This is why people think the way that they do about me. What about you guys? Have you, what has been your experience as you have learned about yourself as a leader? Like, what was that aha moment for you?
Well, I've been familiar with the disc, and sometimes we just showcase what we can pick out about people. I've been in meetings with a lot of neurolinguistic people who just playing limiting belief freeze tag. It's aha, did you hear what you just said to me? Like, yeah, and that sometimes goes over the top. My degrees in guidance counseling, so I used to just for fun just pick out people's personality type based on what I can pick up. So what's your opinion on something? If they say I think as opposed to I feel, that's one of
Yeah,
them.
yeah, yeah.
Pick up on certain things, but sometimes it's hard to translate that to what what comes up. And sometimes it's situational.
Mhm,
Absolutely. Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, thanks so far. It's been great. It's been great learning about you, Angie, and your background. And yeah, I think for the aha, for me, it's it was when I had a mindset shift of if I bring a certain attitude to every conversation, every task, every project, and that attitude for me is, and I guess like set of core beliefs is if I focus on fostering awareness, and bring a level of compassion and empathy, along with respect into every conversation, every project, that like combination of ideals will result in me getting more out of it and me bringing more to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like when that mindset set shift happened, I saw a lot of, I guess, positive outcomes from a leadership perspective, as well as, interpersonal in my relationships, and then also, in professional relationships as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I love what both of you guys said. I totally agree with that. I think that's what I was saying too, is just the self-awareness is the first part, and that's actually not enough to be self-aware, right?
Yeah, what do you do
Um,
about it?
yeah, yeah. And also to your
Hey,
point,
now I know why I messed up. Cool. Explains everything. I can sleep better now. The street.
that's so funny. And to your point, Mike, I think the part, and well, both of you, you're saying to me this is a full package message, but the self-awareness of how I'm showing up and the the choice that we have to how we think, right? So it's just the self-awareness is great. And then we have like I think that that's the greatest power we have is what we choose to think, right? Because at some level, thought is always going to be form of some kind. So how we think, and then the rest of the stuff is the effect of how we think. So both of what you guys have said was really great. And the personality science, I always start, like in my training and stuff, my courses, I start with that, but the emphasis is, so it's the emphasis is we're doing that to learn about ourselves. That's great. That's fascinating, personality assessment. But I want to then be able to use that to pay attention to you, like to make it's about you. So,
Right.
and me not telling a story about you. Erin Thompson does a great job of, and we share similar stories, but she has been saying one recently about a story she shares about when she had this thing happened at work, and she was so upset with this person. And that's where, at least the one that I teach people, my assessment is to recognize that as, it isn't that she's a mean person because she might have that RBF face. Is that what it is? Yeah.
Yes.
Can I say that? Because
Yes.
whatever. It's not because, it maybe she's not a nice person. I don't know, but that's the first story that we tell ourselves. So, it's to taking that self-awareness and then realize how you're thinking through that lens, know how you're thinking about the person that you're communicating with or in relationship with. And usually then also, I was going to ask you guys, all three of you. So my belief and my understanding is that, that relationships are opportunities for us to, when things come up. So it makes sense for me in my marriage. I've had the most to learn from my husband about my own self. So they're opportunities for us to get the most growth within that relationship.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, if it's not serving you anymore, you're not learning, then people will leave. My relationship, I did try that and only found too that, thankfully, that I had more lessons to learn. It wasn't about him, the story I was saying, it was about me. And miraculously, we are pretty great and pretty in love. So that's pretty great.
There's new things that we can learn about ourselves every day based on different situations, based on new relationships, based on life circumstances, new jobs. There's a core of who we are that is the same. But then again, taking that situational understanding and going, okay, but when I'm out in this particular arena, like, so back in the days when we were pastors, we would go to this annual conference, and I mean, you all know me. I'm loud, I'm out there, I'm personality on steroids. But when we were at these conferences, I wasn't like that, because my husband, he's very quiet, he's super subdued, he's a wonderful guy. We're very opposite when it comes to how we behave in public. and I didn't want to like make him feel bad. I didn't want him to feel uncomfortable. So I just, put on the calm and passive. And I started, I got to be friends with a few people, and this one lady, we'd known each other for like 7 years, and we were friends. So at that point, there's no filter. And she was like, when I first met you, I thought you were just a really calm and mellow person. I'm like, oh my gosh, no. There was this party inside that was dying to get out. I was constantly pushing the animal down. But it was situationally appropriate.
Yes.
Because I understood what was going to set my husband up for success. It's the same thing when we're at work, or wherever we're out interacting with other people, is that awareness of the situation. And if our focus is on how can we bring out the best in the people around us,
Right.
then that makes it just a positive outcome.
Yeah. And fostering trust. So what you're talking about is emotional intelligence, right, Jill? You have a level of emotional intelligence that, like reading a room, right? Kind of the same thing. So it's, if someone comes at you and they don't know you and they're like, like you don't know if they want hugs. Maybe they're not a hugger,
Right.
So emotional intelligence, you're able to just sort of read the room, and that fosters trust. And then you did get to that level where you
Yeah.
were then friends, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, that's a great example. That's a great
Yeah.
example.
Awesome. So Angie, in our last couple of minutes here, what do you want to say to us? What leadership tip have you been really focused on lately? And you're like, this is what I want to get out today.
Yeah, thank you for that question. I would come back to whether it is natural intelligence, the universe, or God, that you, I mean, I'm just saying it works for me. And I think when we can choose that first few minutes of the day and get quiet and listen, have a great meditation that you do, it sets your day up. And we all know that feeling. It feels different when we like can connect with our best, highest self, is what I would say, right? When we can connect with that first and just sort of go, okay, this is how my day is going to go. And what that starting out that way and seeing how things go versus your day's been a you know what show. um for me, most of those days, if they happen, or when I didn't start my day like that.
For sure.
So that's what I think. We talk a lot about on LinkedIn and other social medias about kindness, and we talk a lot about creating great environments. We talk a lot about um, all the things, but really we do have that one thing, however you want to call it, that connects us all. And so that would be my encouragement. It's our great responsibility being a leader. So starting somewhere that is foundational is pretty important.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Hey,
Yes.
everybody. It was so great to see you. Angie, it was wonderful to have you here. If we aren't connected on LinkedIn, which I know we all are, but again, I say this because I'm recording this and then it gets like way spread out. So if we're not connected on LinkedIn, I would love to connect with you. If there's ever any way I could be a resource for you, please let me know. I am all about helping people, and have a great rest of your week.
Thanks, guys. Nice to meet you.
Thanks. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Bye.